Good evening. Good evening, everybody.
Oh, it says the connection's unstable.
Seattle, Georgia, California, Tennessee, Canada, Colorado, Michigan, Indiana. Gas 47, I really likes it. Yeah, it's an awesome rifle. Yeah, the mag stuff I love. I just wish I could get it. Tacoma, a lot of Washingtonians here.
Sean, hey Sean.
Hey, Sean.
Gonna wait a couple minutes and
Yep.
give people time to flow in.
Alabama. Syracuse, wow.
Hey Adnan.
Yeah, none. Yep. Message to all of our friends out there in the occupied zones of California, New York, Connecticut, now Canada. The chair is against the wall. Chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache.
That's
Here we
Red
are in
Dawn,
free
right?
America.
And if you guys don't know what that means, you need to go
There's
watch.
nobody here who doesn't know what that
Red
means.
Dawn.
I highly doubt it. That is a classic. And these guys are in occupied zones. There's no questions about that.
Nice work on the cult video. They liked your cult video.
Yep.
Okay, we are going to kick it off. If you would like to donate during the chat, you can use the $sign and attach your question or comment to it. You can also use the link on our website, smallarmsolutions.com. It is for donor box. They only take about 2% versus Google. They take 30% of your donations, which blows. So if you would like to donate, our preferred method is obviously donor box, since they don't rob us and rape us. But my phone is here. They send me an email and you will skirt the line of questions and get priority and get a guaranteed response. We will try to get through as many questions as we can tonight. Our good friend Kirk, who's also in, I believe, Washington as well. I read him your question earlier today, so he laughed about it, and he already knows how he's going to respond.
Yeah.
Came into possession of a cold expanse from a 3-way team trade unfired, sits in back in one of my safes. What would you tell Kurt to do with it? It is stamped Colt. Sell, trade, keep the lower and put BCM upper on it. Keep lower for a clone project, or test out a Morgan County speed wrench, a cutting torch on it.
I would sell the entire
Oh, no,
rifle.
he's Indiana. Sorry.
Yeah. I would sell the rifle and I would go find one of those LE 6920s and buy that. Because quite frankly, to anybody who knows better, that expanse is not a Colt. It's just a clone with a Colt mark on it. I would get rid of that and get yourself a real Colt, like 6920. There's some good prices on those right now. Granted, they may not all be Colt parts, but that would be a true Colt rifle.
Yes, Carrie. All you see is, no, it's not an elbow. It's actually my shoulder. So that was our only submitted question so far. I did not get a chance to let the members of our newsletter know that we had a Q&A today, so I apologize for that. But we're free up for questions. I would ask you to please not put your question in multiple times. If it's been, 20 minutes or whatever, absolutely. But it just messes up where I'm left off, and it's not going to get your question answered any quicker. Any wine this evening? Yes, Thomas. I do have wine. And he says, good evening, Kachi family.
Space Dread, Emo.
I'm hoping it's going to wake me up and not put me to sleep. Is receiver wobble an issue, or is it just an annoyance?
For the most part, it's just an annoyance. There is an actual gauge. It's basically a flat gauge, a feeler gauge that the military uses to determine if something's serviceable or not. I do believe that's in my armor's manual. Unfortunately, I can't tell you that offhand. But you can always get yourself one of the Yaki wedges. Those work really good. Again, mil spec means you do have tolerances. If you got an upper that's on the lowest end of the tolerance and a lower that's on the lower side of the tolerance, or on the highest, sorry, that's opposite, you can have some of that rattling in there, but that's generally normal to have some of that.
No, I have not sent your book back. I ask anyone if they send their book in to please be patient and just know that it's in good hands. And when it makes its way back to you is when it will make its way back to you. I have to go stand in line for that, and in order to ship media mail. And it takes a long portion of my day away from editing and filming and everything else I have to do for the business. So if you could please be patient, if you or anyone else ever sends a book in, it may take a few weeks to get back to you.
Especially with the coronavirus.
It definitely is in good hands, always has, and everybody's always received their books back. Matt wants to know, where is the SAS challenge coin?
Oh, that's a business question. That's you.
I have not had a lot of interest in SAS challenge coins. They are quite pretty penny to put up front to make them. So until I hear from a great portion of you that is something that you would be interested in doing, we will definitely do that. Would you pick an LMT MRP or a Colt 6940?
I have both. The LMT MRP, obviously, that is what I normally choose because of the versatility. If you're planning on just leaving with one barrel, I certainly had no problems. I have several of the one piece upper by Colt. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a 6940 in any of its configurations. If you're looking for just a dedicated barrel where you don't want to save some money by getting a 6940, depending on what the prices are, if the prices are close between the two, I would go with the LMT because you still have the ability to swap out barrels. But there's nothing I'm ever going to be able to tell you that's bad about the 6940. I've always said that's Colt's crown jewel.
Thomas, he says he's having rum and Coke. He wants to know what you're drinking. Right now, Chris is drinking Diet Coke. He did just have a little glass of a bourbon that a subscriber sent into us. So thank you, Kurt. That was amazing. And he loves it.
Splurred speech.
Splurred speech. That's terrible. When Chris used to travel, he would get rum from, because they're talking about rum. He used to get, what's it called?
I used to get the apples from Jamaica.
No, it wasn't Jamaica. It was the other one.
Oh,
the Cuban rum.
That's the Cuban Cuban club.
That's why I asked you. It was really good though. He got mad at me because one night I really dipped into it. Me and a friend. He said he called it the special occasion rum.
It was until she finished it all off.
Where can I get a T-shirt? We have 3 new designs of T-shirts that are out.
This is one of them.
It has the logo large on the back. You go to teespring.com/Small Arm Solutions. And it should be underneath there's links to underneath our videos on Facebook, or not Facebook, YouTube. And you should be able to find it there. But Teespring.com/Small Arm Solutions. His new ones, the pieces measured in meters, is his favorite, and that's just got shipped, so that should be
Forward
here.
to that one.
We got to buy them too, just the same way that you guys do. So he's excited for those to come in.
Yeah, we don't have anything like in stock or anything like that.
Chris, thank you. Trying to decide between a PSA AKE with an FN barrel with a new Zastava. I can't even say it. ZPAP M70 with a 1.5 millimeter receiver, chrome line barrel, and bulged trunnion, both the same money. Any insight into either?
For my money, I go with the Zastava. The Zastava is a company that's been making AKs forever. I do like I still like the chrome vanadium with the chrome plating. It's chrome plated. But still a little bit more of a favorite of mine, especially for you guys who may still have some of this old Chinaman ammunition that's corrosive or anything of the such. PSA is an American AK. There's very few American-made AKs that are as good as as some of the Conblock ones. The Zastava has always been one of the Cadillacs. It's been right up there with, the finish. What is my brain? The Valmets. I mean, you're looking at two of the top ones out there, and even the original Zastavas didn't have chrome plating. So it's nice that you're finding one that it is chrome lined. Bulgarian trunnion. I think my question or my opinion would be straight Zastava. Absolutely.
Travis on Donor Box says, "Keep up the great work, Chris and Heather. I'm enjoying the content." Thank you, Travis.
Say that again.
He said, "Good job. Keep up the good content." Thomas,
Thank you.
Chris, thoughts on the new Colt LE6920? Looking to buy my first Colt AR.
Well, if you can find a 6920, again, that is the Colt. That is the quintessential Colt of the last 10 plus years. Now, Colt has been doing some government contracts for foreign military sales and so forth. So they may be doing some production in-house of the bolt carriers and such. So you may see some of those components come out into the newer production 6920s. Now, when I say newer production, to my understanding from Michiko, he's a gun dealer, he was saying they're still filling orders from before they made their announcement. The 6920, you'll never find a bad one. Please keep in mind when I talk about parts, farming out the companies that have been subcontractors in the past to them. They're just not making the stuff in house like they used to. That's my biggest problem, with them, because that's what sort of the things that set them apart from everybody else. But I doubt any of you are going to see a bad Colt rifle coming out of them, other than the Expanse, which isn't a real Colt rifle, and not even that one to say is that it's not that it's a bad rifle. It's just it wasn't made in Hartford. So 6920s of today, I mean, they're not like the ones that they were 10 years ago. 10 years ago, the stuff came out for the same lines and was going to the military. Now you don't see that because there's no military contracts. But with the quantities that they've been making for foreign government sales, you may get lucky and start seeing some of those parts that are still manufactured in Connecticut.
Heather, will there be any more of the crime series videos? Chris does an amazing job on those videos. Absolutely. That is not a series I see ending anytime soon. I know that we just concluded the ending of the Colt series, but the crime series is not.
Lorson's coming up next, and that's going to be a real doozy.
Yeah, we just try to space them out so that there's a variety of content mixed in there. Matt on Donor Box wants to know, what do you think of the AK-12?
I've only ever shot one. And that came out of when I came out of Krebs Custom, and it was extremely finicky on ammunition. I guess I probably couldn't really give you something that's definitive because I just don't have a lot of experience with those.
You might want to turn that lamp just a little bit more toward the back because your face does look like it's glowing. That's better. Lamont, thank you. What is your opinion of the P320 lineup, specifically the X series models? Love your work. Please keep it up. Also, opinions on the Wasser 10S versus ...
Over the last several months, I've gotten a lot more trigger time on the P320, and I definitely have to say it has grown on me. I've had no issues. I've not had a single malfunction, and we've done several thousand rounds, and I mean several thousand rounds. Accurate. They've been reliable. In fact, that's probably one that she enjoys shooting. Because she took part in some testing I was doing on one, and she liked it as well. They had corrected the issue with the unintentional discharges. I can't really give you any reason not to buy one at all. It's all about the feel. If that's what you like, if it feels better to you than anything else, go for it. If you just like it, go for it. It's a top tier gun. It's being used by police, and it's being sold overseas. It's a good pistol. So I can never tell you anything bad about it. As far as the washers are concerned, that is still probably the closest you're going to see to a regular old Soviet AK M of 10 years ago, prior to the AK 100 series coming out. It's all Russian machines. That's for the prices, you can't beat them. The only thing you'll ever have to watch out for is canted front sights, which generally you can have that on anything, but it tends to be the washers that we see that the most on. Reliability is typical AK, the machining. The only thing you do notice differently on the Romanian washers is there's a sort of a pushed-in bulge that's above the magazine. That's on the AK series. It's used for strengthening the receivers. That is not on the standard washers anymore. Those washers, as they come into the U.S., take a 10-shot magazine, which is proprietary. Once the guns get here into the U.S., they get the American 922R compliant parts in, and then they machine out um, the magazine well to accept the standard AK magazine. Now, sometimes that can be undersized, sometimes it can be oversized. You tend to get more of a rattle, obviously, out of those than you do some of the standard ones. But to get an AK that you can have, this is manufactured pretty much completely in Romania, minus the 922R components. It's not the quality of the Krebs. It's not the quality of the Bulgarian. You're looking at more of a mil spec type AK. That's one of the things that we talk about a lot. Is you talk about AKs, how a mil spec AK is. That's the closest you're going to see to a standard mil spec AK. Because if you were to pick up a rifle off the battlefields in Iraq or in Afghanistan, those are what you're going to see. In fact, the guys who were in Iraq, there was a massive amount of those that were bought by Saddam Hussein's regime because they were cheap. And the Ratmil Kujir plant in Romania, they pump out a lot of rifles throughout the world, very, very inexpensive. So that is a perfect example of a real combat AK. These really nice ones, these custom ones you see, they don't give you a representative of what's seen on the battlefield. Those are much higher end rifles.
Isn't Colt resuming AR production in the near future?
Until they make the announcement and we start seeing new rifles coming out, I don't know. They could be feeling pressure. Any of these contracts that they get that's sustaining them, they're temporary. What they've got, they're going to have temporarily. These government contracts, those are going to dry up, and then they're going to have to figure out how to bring in that money. They're going to bring employees back for these big contracts, and as soon as those contracts are done, they're going to lay those people off again. That's been the series of events that's happened with Colt for many, many years. They have the contracts, they bring the people in, and they lose the contracts, they lay them furlough.
Thank you. Chris, what's your opinion on the SVD Dragunov rifles?
I've shot several of those, including actual Soviet ones over in Croatia. I'm sorry, not Croatia, in Kiev, in the Ukraine. I've shot them in Afghanistan. I've shot them in several places throughout the world, different Soviet-made ones. And I have to say, I'm not impressed. The accuracy that we got out of those was nothing compared to what we're getting out of our our SR-25s or the LMTs. They are not equal to that of any of the high-end AR-10s. The accuracy is not there. The trigger is not there. It's certainly more precise than your standard AK. But if you're looking at group size potential, I've never been that impressed with the Dragunovs. And then when I see what the prices go for, it just sickens me. That you can, for $5,000 to $10,000, and even more than that for a Soviet one, and the things don't shoot that great compared to what you can get for $2,000 out of an AR-10. Now, from a collector standpoint, since you can't import those in from Russia, I guess I can see a collector's value to them, but not what they are. You're not getting that precision of a rifle. For that, you do have quite a bit of recoil out of those. It's not a light recoiling gun. They are a little bit more choosy with what grain weights that they use. Um, it's not really one of my favorite rifles. I mean, price is always an issue. If you get what you pay for with price, it's one thing. But when a price doesn't really come off of performance, it just becomes off of collector's value and availability. I guess I don't see spending that money because they are not that precision of a rifle.
Chad, any thoughts on these optics TS1 and 8 by 24?
That specific one, no. I've been trying to get my hands on one that goes. My contact I have at US Optic is no longer there, so it's harder for me to get products to test. However, I have two of their other optics, and US Optics is premium glass. They are extremely high quality. I would put them well up there with the highest end that's out there. I'm looking at over here. I have one of their ones. It's the mid range one that I put on my 300 Win Mags 30-06s. Then I have the highest power one. Pardon me, I don't recall the exact powers off of the scopes offhand. The other one I have on my 338 Lapua. And that's an awesome combination. They are expensive, but they're not overpriced. If you look at some of the Schmidt and Benders and all that, which I think are very much overpriced. I think that the U.S. Optics is an excellent way to go. It's an excellent value for what you're getting.
And Matt wants to know, Kalashnikov concerned redesigned the AK-12 and made it simpler, more like an AK-74 internally. Russian Defense Ministry said it was unreliable. I've heard that the redesign was because Russian military was poor. Do you think that was true?
One thing about Russia, you have a lot of politics still to this day in there. If you look at Kalashnikov's design bureau, I do believe now it's headed by his son, and you got Dragunov's son who works in that bureau there also. There's a lot of politics that goes on. If you were to see the political infighting that went in when the AN-94 got adopted by Nikonov, the gun that was competing against was actually designed by, I think, by Viktor Kalashnikov. And Mikhail Kalashnikov used all of his influence he could to influence that, but somehow Nikonov got that anyways. In the end, well, they won with the AK-100 series because they just couldn't build the AN-94. There's a lot of politics that goes on there, and the reason why you saw the AK-100 series go into production instead of the AN-94 was because of cost. So the Russians don't have a lot of money. Now, as far as what the AK-12 is concerned, I don't know what the actual cost difference is between that and the AK-74. So without knowing that, it's hard to say. They definitely don't want to abandon the Kalashnikov design for what it's worth. I like to get my hands on more of them and just to see how the suckers do work. And you can't really speak for what the Russians are thinking because there's a lot of politics. It's just like that over here now. It didn't used to be that way in Russia. They went for what worked. They were the what worked. They weren't of who made it and who's has the more influence. So that's really the best I can say about that. Their weapons programs over there are usually pretty good. They're usually pretty professionally done. So the problems they're having with the AK-12, I'm not really as familiar with because I can't get my hands on them here.
What is your opinion on the best striker-fired 45 ACP?
I only own striker-fired 45s as Glock. That's the only one that I own. The Smith & Wesson 45 M&P is a good one as well. I did get quite a bit of trigger time with those as well during a weapons replacement program in New York. That's one of the police departments in Rochester. Those are the only two that I've really given any time with for as far as striker-fired 45s. Most of my 45s I have the USP Tactical. I have the Mark 23 Cruiser pistol. And then I have the FNX, which is a beautiful 45. That's probably one of my favorite ones right now. That's not saying there's anything else out there that doesn't work good, but those are the only ones I've had a chance to really get a lot of rounds through.
What is your opinion on the best striker-fired 45? Wait, I just did that one. What is your average lifespan on a 6.5 at Creedmoor barrel?
Now, that is a very subjective question because there is a lot of things that go into what the barrel life is. For instance, rate of fire and your maintenance, types of bullets, and so forth. Now, for the most part, with a 6.5, you say Grendel or Creedmoor?
Creedmoor, I believe.
Okay.
I just scrolled past it. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Now,
It was at the very
well,
top.
either one, a Creedmoor or a Grendel. Chances are you will not be having a chrome line barrel. You're going to be having a stainless steel barrel. So that that automatically takes your durability away. For a precision rifle versus a combat rifle. So now you have to look at velocities. The far higher velocity, for instance, if you look at a 6.5 Creedmoor versus a 308, your 6.5 Creedmoor is going to wear at a quicker rate than the 308. And it's really hard to do that because there's so many ammunition. I have to say, for the most part, you're looking between 3,000 to 6,000 rounds, and that's for keeping your precision accuracy, and that's with maintaining properly, not letting the barrels overheat. Um, it's my opinion. Again, it's very, very subjective, barrel to barrel, and how it's used.
Trent, thank you, Trent. You should look up the PSS pistol will not disappoint.
That's Walther, isn't it? All right, let me look that up. Make sure I'm thinking about the right one.
There.
Oh, I'm not familiar with that one.
Silent pistol or MSS Vol.
I have to write that one down. Take a look at it.
A silent pistol.
Yeah. I'll take a look at that. I have not seen that one. That's not what I thought it was. I was thinking of a Walther that had a similar acronym. We're going to take a look into that one.
Do you prefer the LMT in the piston or DI configuration?
DI, absolutely. It's interesting. I was just talking to LMT today about that. My buddy over there, Joe. I've been working with these guys and a fan going back to probably 2003. I had prototype MRPs in my hand, and I was doing testing with them. And they had, was it 2003 or 2004 is when they had the 2002 maybe 2003. And that area is when they came out with the external piston as well. I fired it a little bit back then, but not much. I just didn't have the interest in it. So I basically used the DI all these years. It wasn't until the Unia contract where that piston got popular, because that's the first military contract I got, and it was with that. So now I'm starting to do a lot more with it. I've got two barrels here. I got one that's the 14.5 inch and one that's the 12.5. I've been doing a lot of full auto testing on those, a lot of different shooting with it. So I'm getting more and more familiar with it and the ammunition that's best for it and all that. But I would say hands down, absolutely, I am a DI fan.
Thank you, Kevin. I don't see a question for you. If you want to pop it down
Thank you.
in the chat line, I will look for it. Brandon on Donor Box. Thank you, Brandon. What are your thoughts on the Bravo Company Mark II upper receiver? And do you think the reinforcements are necessary?
Mark II or Mark 12? It
says Mark II.
Okay. I love BCM. I have only in my career had an opportunity to look at two of them, and that was probably about 3 years ago. Just before the coronavirus, or just after the coronavirus, I had sent my buddy over there, Eric, a text or I'm sorry, an email that I wanted to get some more of their guns over there. They told me after things slow up a little bit because of all the sales, because of the virus and all that kind of stuff, they're going to get me a couple more out, and I'll be able to get some more stuff tested. They've always been top tier stuff. They don't manufacture their own components, but they choose very good subcontractors. And I've never heard anybody complain about BCM at all. Larry Creedmoor is in their pocket. Larry Vickers is in their camp there. He talks highly about all of those guns, and very, very favorably. I've only got experience with two. Both those guns, it was an excellent experience. I can't make any complaints whatsoever.
JB, thank you. Chris, which bolt action rifles would you recommend? Chambered in 308 or 6.5 Creedmoor box fed, or for under $1,000?
You are totally out of my realm of experience. I do not own any bolt action rifles, period.
Somebody actually said that. He's on
now, for as far as your calibers are concerned, anything that the 308 can do, the 6.5 Creedmoor can do better. I have to say I'm getting more and more interested in working with more and more of the 6.5 Creedmoor, and chambered rifles. You have longer range. You have better longer range accuracy and so forth. These days, I think I'm starting to push more towards the 6.5 Creedmoor for long range rifles. Assault rifles is still different. It's still a different thing. Um, Using those on semi-automatic, or where you're using a large round count, or especially on full auto, it's a barrel killer. And you generally want to have a barrel that's at least 22, if not 24 inches long, to get the best performance out of it. It's not like a 308 where you can drop it down to 18 inches and you have the best performance you can get out of a 308. It's a little bit different with that. The 6.5 Creedmoor, you have to have a longer barrel.
Thomas has been itching for this question to be answered. Is $23.99 for a retro? Oh, it's moving fast. $23.99 for a retro Colt M16A1 semi-auto rifle, U.S. government property marked a good value.
Say that again.
Is $2,400 for a retro Colt M16A1 semi-auto rifle, U.S. government property marked a good value?
I'm not sure who makes those. I don't know if you're talking about the Colt. The Colt. If you're looking at the Colt, that's about the going price for the Colt retro rifles that they're making. Nobody else puts those out with those markings on it. So, quite frankly, just for that stamp on them, I think you're better off going with a Brownell's BRN 16A1. You're going to get just as good of a rifle, if not better of a rifle. It literally half the cost. If you have to have the Hartford horse in there, you really spend that kind of money. Just make sure you understand that it's not made by Colt. You do have Colt receivers that they paid for the tooling for the dies, for the forging dies, but those parts are not Colt parts. Those are farmed out parts. You're not getting a true M16A1 type rifle. Unfortunately, the only way really to do that is to buy the parts like I did with my. You're going to be seeing a video coming up on service rifles, full size rifles, and I'm going to be going over my BRN 601 that's highly modified, my XM16E1 highly modified, and then the A1, A2, standard 16, and the A4. And I'm going to show you everything that I did to try to make those as perfect as possible. And with my A1, those were all Colt parts. The only thing that is not Colt on there is that lower receiver. That's it. Every other part is probably 1980s, in the 80s, early 80s, late 70s. M16 parts that were Colt parts.
Lots of questions tonight. We're going to try to get through as many as possible. I know this guy's asked his question a couple times. He's been patient. I recently made a comment on your last video about a rumor I've seen. Colt apparently will be releasing a Golf 5A clone. Is this a bunch of hoopla? And you'd be the guy to know.
Well, they have a Golf 5. They've had one for. Theirs is more of the XM16E1. I'm sorry, there's more the XM177E2. That they've had, but they've had one out for quite some time. They were talking about doing one of the Air Force ones. I don't think that they probably will. That I can't tell you for sure. I'm not in that office anymore. But it would not make a lot of sense to me due to the fact that these were not very successful because of the price. It seems to me that they had a hell of a time selling the ones that they had. Anything's possible. I can't tell you no because I'm not there. But it sort of would surprise.
Back to Kevin. He said accurate life and practical life of a new M1 Garand barrel. Did we do that one?
Not the M1 Garand barrel.
Okay. He wants accurate life and practical life of a new M1 Garand barrel.
Well, I guess a couple things come into account there. When you say new, are they new chrome line type barrels? If they're not chrome lined, those barrels are probably 6,000 to 10,000 before to where you're not going to have really acceptable accuracy with those. Those original ones were not chrome plated, if I recall, and due to the fact they're semi-automatic, the wearing is not as bad as if it was selective fire. I have to say I don't do a lot of shooting with the M1 Garand, even though I have one. My 30-06 is the Noreen BN30 or BN36, which is basically an AR-10 type rifle that fires 30-06. And I can say with that barrel, which is a heavier barrel, it's a higher quality barrel than the ammunition as well. The Garands you have to be a little bit careful of too, because you can't fire overpressured ammunition in those. You will warp the operating rod on those, so you have to be very careful of what ammunition that you use in those as well. But again, barrel life is a very subjective thing. But those barrels are easy enough to replace these days too. I mean, they're very common.
Can you go over Colt law enforcement markings, please? That might be a whole video idea.
Not really. It's simple. Colt used an LE serial number prefix for the most part. And back when they were true law enforcement government use only, it was very simple. On the right side of the magazine well, they would say for law enforcement government use only. That was stamped on the sides. And they did that right up until after they lost their contracts, probably around the 2000, I would say 2011, 2012, in that area in there is when they got rid of the actual law enforcement markings and they went to the M4 on basically everything other than the Colt piston gun, the AR-15A3 tactical. But those were the guns that were marked that were specifically to be sold to their law enforcement distributors, not their commercial distributors. And that was part of the law enforcement. So when you saw those were actual law enforcement. And then after that, everything was the same lower. And most of them were the 170 diameter hammer and trigger pin. They did have no, that was done. Yeah, you won't see any of those older ones that have the 155 diameter. They've gotten rid of those before they went into their post ban rifles that they actually set M4 in the sides.
Why did M&P lose the military contracts?
Gun didn't hold up. If you want to say that was done on the rifles, it did not meet the durability of the 12,000 rounds, which doesn't surprise me because Smith & Wesson, since the semi-automatic only pistols, same thing happened with the XI9 trials. Their gun didn't even make it through the testing to a finalist. Back then, it was parts breakage and firing from protrusion. But this time here, only the manufacturers were told how their pistols performed, but it suffice to say it must have been a serious durability issue if it didn't even make it to the down select.
Is the 338 Norma a better cartridge than the Lapua for long range sniping?
I don't believe so. I believe the Lapua is a better long range. The 338 Norma is a more compact cartridge.
Carrie was asking if that was your 338 Lapua.
No,
Was
mine's
your Bigfoot gun?
Actually, I do have that one too with a 338 Federal cartridge.
Thoughts on the AK bullpups in the U.S. by Syrian rebels?
I am not familiar with that specific one, but I think you all know how I feel about bullpups in general. I don't particularly care to have my face that close to the ejection port. And that gun wasn't designed to be a bullpup. It's short enough as it is. I think it's not one of those things where someone's trying to find a place in the market that hasn't really been touched and sort of asking a question that's never been asked before and not even requested. I think you're just looking for a new niche. It's to me, it's more of a gadget than it is something that's practical.
Any opinion on the Ruger PC carbine? I just got one and I love it so far.
Let me make sure I get that one right too.
Oh, goodness. I'm always way faster than you here.
Oh, yeah. I've not heard anything negative about it. I have tried to get several of the Ruger guns recently, but unfortunately, the person that I dealt with is gone. So I have absolutely no contacts at Ruger at this point. The only thing that I will say is I do have a friend of mine who has one, and it's a little, it's not very ammo sensitive. It does a good job pretty much with everything being direct blowback. And he's quite fond of it, but I have no trigger time on it myself. However, that is one of the ones. There's actually like 3 or 4 different Rugers I'm trying to get my hands on, including the new 5.7. The 5.7 I'm dying to get my hands on to do some testing with. That would be one, and if I can get my hands on one, you'll see a video on it.
Oh, Carrie's leaving us.
Already, isn't it?
He said, "Good night, guys. I got to go."
Good night.
Getting back to where I left off. What's the top brand you would recommend for an AR-15 5.56?
Well, all of you guys who know me, you know that if I have to take off the shelf, I'm a big LMT fan. That's probably one of the main places that I would go. Again, earlier Colts, no problem whatsoever. If you want to spend the money on the SR25s, no problem. Big Caracal fan. I do like Caracal. those are those are the more higher end. You're going to see a video probably within the next month or so. It's going to be on sort of a budget AKs where we're going to be looking at ones that are below 1,000. And I've chosen some which I think are some of the finer ones: Aero Precision, um, Palmetto State. I've got Diamondback, the ATI Omni Max, Aero Precision, and I'm hoping to have a Radical Firearms. And I was trying to get my hands on a Delton. Delton has not been very responsive, but these are ones that cost less than 1,000 that I think are good for the money that shoot really, really well.
I think they'll like that too. Chris, do you think Beretta will ever come out with a 92 series in 45 ACP?
No, they can't. That design, the way the size would be and everything, it would be totally unpractical. They've been asked that for years, and the highest they're going to go is a 40 caliber on it. If you want to Beretta in 45, you really need to go with a PX4. They had the Cougar series years ago. In fact, that was the issue pistol for Rochester Police Department for a while, and that was replaced with the PX4 in 45. Then they eventually replaced that with the Glock 45. But if you want to Beretta 45, that's your way to go, is the PX4, which I've got quite a few number of rounds through those.
David, thank you. If you have a question, please let me know down in the line and I'll pull it for you. Pistol Pete wanted to know, are you familiar with the Vang comp porting for shotguns?
Mm-hmm. Now, the shotguns specifically, what I deal with are military law enforcement shotguns, which mostly what I use is my Benelli M110 or M4. That's the M1014. I think is the best military shotgun on the face of the earth, and of course the combat loads, the buckshot and the slugs.
What kind of accuracy can you get out of a T91 upper?
The one that I got, Henry Chan, he had shot quite a bit. Now you have to understand that the T91s that we get here, those are American-made barrels, and the one that I have is iron sights. And I do not recall what Henry got. Henry was very impressed with it. He was very pleased with it. But unfortunately, I cannot recall because it's been quite some time. That is a gun that I will be revisiting at some point. But you're looking at basically a 16-inch barrel or close to it. It's 15 point something if I recall. I was shooting it at 50 yards. I was certainly getting quarter size holes with it. It's an assault rifle. It's not a precision rifle. So you don't expect that really big sub MOA with it. But for as far as the issue barrels, I'm not sure. I never had a chance to shoot one. But I tell you, the one that I have, I love it. I mean, we shot quite a few rounds out of it, and we got just where I wanted to for as far as it looking like it's the real thing. The only really difference between mine and the real one, other than not being full auto, is the finish. I have a black finish, and they use more of the charcoal gray.
What's the reason behind why the G3 was not designed to take the same mags as the FAL?
HK is proprietary. They were also designed separately. There was no those were designed at separate periods and separate parts of the world. They're not or separate parts. They weren't designed in Germany. It's a totally different system. They're two totally different systems. There was no commonality. There was no need for any kind of commonality back then. And HK still to this day, those of you who are familiar with the HK 417, it's all proprietary still to this day. FN has they've kept with that magazine. If you guys are familiar with the SCAR series, those magazines for the SCAR are modified FAL magazines. You're looking at companies who are very much into their proprietary designs, even to this day. Hell, HK, even during the early development of the HK 417, they used G3 magazines before they switched to their own. But there are early prototypes that use the standard G3 magazines.
Is it true that Carl Lewis really doesn't like external piston ARs at all, but he makes it for the market anyway?
Yes. Carl, he has been a fan of the DI. That's what he felt works the best, and I agree with him. But Carl is a smart businessman. If your customers say they want this, you don't try to convince them what you have is better. You give them what they want, or they go to another company, which is what happened with Colt. Because right after all this came out with the piston, everyone wanted external piston. Colt was was of the attitude that if we were to offer an external piston, that they'd be admitting that something that they were something better than their internal piston. Well, unfortunately, them having that attitude, they turned their business over to HK, to LWRC. You know, just because they were afraid of losing M4 contracts. Where Carl Lewis, no, if that's what you want, we'll give it to you. It's not my favorite thing, but I'll give it to you, and I'll give you a good one.
Chris, you're making me want to go out and spend more money and build a 6.5 Creed.
I like him. I have a 6.5 Creedmoor barrel for my XCR, and I have one for my LMT. My MLS. I have 6.5 Creedmoor barrels for both of those.
What are your thoughts on alternative AR action springs like the Super 42, Voltar A5, or JP captured spring?
Well, let me say this. I generally stick with the mil spec ones, and there's a reason for that. Is when you look at the balances between the barrel weights and buffers and all that, those are all done that way so they will work in all conditions, from negative 32 to 150, 165 degrees Fahrenheit. That's how they're designed. The buffer spring is not a stress part. Very few of you will ever, I can tell you in my career, the only time I've ever had to replace buffer springs is if they've rusted or they broke. It's not a part that really ever wears out. It's not a highly stressed spring, so it's not really a big issue. The Voltor systems, the A5, that was designed for a specific purpose. It was to put a telescopic stock on a 20-inch rifle with a rifle length gas system, which requires additional weight than you generally get out of a carbine buffer. So it was designed. Now the captive springs, that's a totally different. That's a gadget. It's not something that you would put in a combat rifle. In fact, those you can't even use in full auto. You look at the braided springs that are put out by Geisley. I tried that really once, and it didn't go very well. It was too heavy of a spring, and it caused short stroking. There's not a need for it. It's one of those things that we're going to try to bring something to market to try to show you that it's better, but really, is it? No. I don't mess with those really. There is a little bit more of a tuning issue with the 308s, but when it comes to the 5.56s, there's buffer springs that work. They're designed for this platform, and they work across the board in all conditions. And that's pretty much what I stay with.
Adnan on Donor Docs. Thank you so much, Adnan. He has two questions.
Sure.
His first one is, besides Mark Westrom of Armalite in the 90s, and more recently Brownells that made a, quote, attempt to bring back the original AR-10 of the 50s design, did Reed Knight of Knight's Armament ever considered bringing back the original design that closely resembles the original prototype, since he has most, if not all, of Stoner's rifles in his personal collection?
Well, I can tell you sort of a story on this. We're going to go back to after Mark Westrom bought, after he bought Eagle Arms. He had been working on a 308 AR-10 type design prior to Stoner's SR-25 being released. He was working on it, didn't release it, and then Reed Knight got his out first. Him and G. Stoner got theirs out first with the SR-25. So Mark Westrom did a little bit of a detour on what he was doing. He wanted to manufacture parts that were common with the Knights on the higher level, basically bolt carriers, upper receivers, lower receivers, because he knew when Reed was to introduce those parts that Reed's parts would be so expensive that nobody could afford them. So he wanted to keep his uppers, bolt carriers, barrels, and so forth compatible with that design. So right before the full release was done, Reed got wind of it. He called Mark Westrom. I remember Mark Westrom and told me the thing, and Mark he said something to Mark like, "So I hear you're bringing out an AR-10 rifle," and he goes, "Yeah," and then he said, "Yeah," and then the phone was hung up. It was so I think Reed knew he had competition. Now at that point, this was prior to Reed having any military contracts for any of these rifles. Mark Westrom in that time period made more AR-10 type rifles than anybody in the industry up until probably I would probably say up until the really early days of the Sunset. He had made more. So what would happen was every time somebody had a barrel go bad or a bolt go bad on an SR-25, they would be able to go to Armlight and get those parts. The only thing Mark Westrom did do differently was first off, he used the M14 magazines, and those of you who have Black Rifle can read why he did that because of the ban. He wanted people to have 20-round magazines. And the other thing was Mark Westrom wasn't as interested as reading geneware and making something that was so compatible with the M16A2, so it would have more parts commonality with stuff that was already in the inventory. So you had a proper gas tube, for instance, that Mark Westrom used. The one that was used on the SR-25 didn't sit all the way back into the key the way it should because it was meant for a 5.56. But that was a very interesting story. You know, they were looking forward, not backwards, and that's how Reed was with the introduction. That's how Gene was with it. He wasn't interested in bringing back the original AR-10. He was interested in adapting his his SR-25 to the modern industry, modern world, modern warfare. That wasn't having a carrying handle. It wasn't having it was turning it into a long range sniper rifle, and he wanted to keep it more in line with the M16A2. You know, Mark tried doing a retro rifle, but all it was the same rifle he had with the Sudanese type handguard and brown furniture. It wasn't nothing like what Brownells. What Brownells did was totally legendary. It was totally revolutionary, really going back to those early years.
Okay, and his second question is, besides Otis technology that try to utilize Richard Swan's barrel nut mounting method for a handguard rail, i.e. their FRAC forward rail assembly kit, were there other companies that utilize that Arms Incorporated method of installation?
No, back in those days, Uncle Dick, or those of us who knew Dick Swan, we referred to him as Uncle Dick, he was very vicious about his patents. And he would go after anybody who violated his patents. And he had the patent of clamping directly to the barrel nut. So that's why when we had Otis did the frac, we went with him. We got licensing agreement together, so we could do that together. So after he passed, people have been a lot more brave for as far as taking his design. I'm not sure quite what the time period was on his patent. If it's now up or not, I'm not sure. But Uncle Dick passed a year or so ago, so I don't think there's a lot of issues anymore with people who are using his technology.
Thomas, thank you so much on Donnerbox. And he'll say that you didn't have a question attached to it. He just says thanks for all you guys do. Thank you so much. Jeremy on Donnerbox. Thank you, Jeremy. I love the work you guys do. I just got an MOA with an Aero Precision A4 clone build using 77 grain IMI Razor Core 2. I'm glad to see Aero is a high quality brand and that you guys also think so.
Aero is they do a lot of OEM work. When Mark Westrom was still working with was still the owner of Armalite, they did all of the receivers for his M15s and his AR-10s. All those receivers were Aero Precision. They do a lot of OEM work. And in order to get OEM contracts for these higher end companies, you have to know what you're doing. And Aero Precision does. I could not recommend their equipment any higher. You will be seeing an AR-10 rifle on the lower cost budget type rifles. That didn't come from Aero Precision. It came from Brownells. I don't have any contacts over at Aero Precision anymore, but the Brownells was graciously enough to loan us a rifle for that video coming up.
Nathaniel, thank you. I saw a shop that will convert any AR barrel to work with an LMT MRP upper. Have you heard of that, and is it worth it? I would love a hammer forged barrel with my MRP upper.
I have heard of it, yes. I've never used any of them. You know, quite frankly, when you look at Carl's barrels versus the hammer forged barrels, you're looking at machine gun grade steel, and you're also looking at cryo treatment to stress relieve. I don't think you're going to see as much of a benefit as you do, you know, with some other companies. But for as far as that quality of those barrels are concerned, I just don't know because I've never used them. I've only used OEM parts.
Try to find my spot at the top here.
There's a lot of questions. I don't know how you can possibly keep track of these.
I'm trying. What are your thoughts on the Ceridian core barrels? They start off about as thick as a SOCOM barrel, but have a continuous taper 1 1/8 twist.
I recently had one. It was on I believe, American Defense rifle. And I have to say that was a very accurate barrel. It was not an extensive test. The accuracy was some away with the Black Hill 77 grain OTM. Given that's the only one that I've had experience with, that's really all I can tell you about them. People do speak very highly of them. My only experience with them has been excellent.
Guys, don't forget to thumbs up the video. It helps the channel. So thank you. I have a Colt AR-15A2 marked government carbine lower and a Colt M16A2 upper marked CMB. Did I make the best M16A2 clone? That weapon has an LMT M203 37mm launcher. Did the LMT make M203s for the Marine Corps? I'm a Marine Corps vet. Thank you for your service.
Okay, the M16 upper receiver marked CMB. That should not be marked CMB. That should have a CMP 556 NATO 1/7. The CMB marked is for a 556 barrel with a 1 in 12-inch twist, which it would be CMP, which would be chrome bore and barrel. So the CMB, B I don't know. It should be MPC or MPB. Now, for as far as the that's the only thing that really stands out is the markings don't seem right.
And then the second part, that weapon has an LMT M203 37mm launcher. Did the LMT
Oh,
make?
sure. Now the AR-15A2 government carbine, the upper would have been a pencil barrel, but actually the only thing that's really bothering me is your barrel. That does not sound like a Colt barrel, because it should say a CMP, mag particle proof tested, 5.56 1/7 NATO, which indicates that it's designed for the M855 ammunition. So the only thing that concerns me is your barrel mark. That doesn't make sense to me. If you want to take a picture of that and email over to Heather, I'll take a look at it. But that bothers me. I don't know whose barrel that is or what it is, but it doesn't sound right.
Just popped my email into the chat line, Joseph, if you want to send a photo later, and I'll have Chris look at it for you. Matt, our own donor box. Thank you, Matt. Love the channel. So you did a video on the Century Arms RPK AES 10B and spoke of a follow-up with proper Romanian furniture and 100 yards grouping. I haven't found that video. Have you done that, or can you talk about your progress with that rifle?
Yeah. The rifle looks beautiful. Henry Chan took it out and he did some groups with it, and he was less than impressed. So for as far as having anything really great to say about it, not much. It was made at a barn door. The longer barrels on there were not to make the gun more accurate. It was to give it longer range so the bullets would go further. The accuracy is nothing to write home on. So I really sort of lost interest in doing anything with it because I was hoping that we were going to see some better accuracy out of it for what the cost was of the damn thing. But no, I sort of just dropped that because.
Joseph says it's marked CMB by the rear sight.
Take a picture and send it to me. That's not a Colt barrel, I don't believe. Look for any other markings by where the chamber is under the handguard to see if you see any roll stamps on it or any marks or anything.
But I know you guys have those questions a lot, and we do offer that outside of the chat. If you guys have pictures, whether it's a problem with a gun or if you're trying to verify if you have an actual Colt or not, you can send photos to me at the email address that I just put in there, hbartachi@smallarmsolutions.com. All we ask is that you make a donation to the channel for Chris's time, because it can be consuming with the amount of questions that we have that come in. But there's always that option if you guys are needing to know outside of the chat. Nathaniel, thank you. Just ordered a Gucci Geisley BCG. Don't judge me. I love collecting Gucci BCGs. Are hammer forged bolts superior to LMT enhanced bolts?
I have been doing research into this. Unfortunately, I cannot get anything out of Geisley for test and evaluation. Now, to give you a little bit of background, this is not a new design. Probably 2010, 2012, in that area there. I went to a trade show in Paris It was a law enforcement military trade show. Went and visited the Schmeiser booth, Schmeiser out of Germany. They already had a enhanced hammer forged bolt. They felt that it was an improvement over the standard Carpenter 158. Now, I had long conversations with two gentlemen. One is somebody who I think the absolute world of, and he. Well, I probably shouldn't give his name, but let me say that this guy is probably one of the most about this as well. Now, first off, the bolt that they did, they made an enhancement to the material, but they made no enhancements to the extractor or the ejector, and nothing to the locking lugs. So we have a harder material that supposedly doesn't crack, but we have done nothing to increase. First off, like LMT did with theirs, you have with the carrier, you have more dwell time. More dwell time means easier extraction, means it's easier on the extractor. You have a improved extraction system. First off, you have on the LMT, you have a larger extractor which grips more of the rim. Then instead of having one spring in there, you have two. You have two extractor springs, which makes for a longer, more durable life of your extractor. Then to improve, I'm sorry, then to improve over the beach for as far as the bolts being able to hold up to having water in the barrel and so forth. Carl Lewis he looked at that and he added a fully supported breech face. Those of you who look at your LMT enhanced bolts, you'll see the cartridge base is fully supported, round all the way. Those of you who have standard bolts, you'll see a part that's cut off on an angle where you see part of the bolt, or sorry, part of the cartridge case where it would hang over into the extractor pocket. So Carl fixed that as well. And then to deal with the issue of locking lugs breaking, he put a notch on each of the lugs, which allowed it to flex, which made it so that it was significantly stronger. So now we look at the design of the Geisley. We have a more durable bolt. Okay, we've done nothing to improve extraction, done nothing to to decrease the stress on the extractor. By the dwell time, we've done nothing to improve over the beach conditions. We've done nothing for the lugs other than going with whatever they think is more durable, on the hammer forged bolt. So, giving all that information, do I think that the Geisley bolt is better because it's just hammer forged? No. The material that Carl Lewis uses is not 9130. It's a proprietary blend, and I've been trying to break those bolts since they came out in 2003. And I have ones that have got probably tens of thousands of rounds through them, and I can't break it. So it's great to have a bolt that doesn't break. Supposedly, there's been no testing done, nothing been made available to anybody to see how good this bolt really is. But all those other problems that were addressed by LMT, none of them were by Geisley.
Thank you, JB. What's your take on custom slide milling on Glocks and any known extraction or feeding issues?
Well, first off, the weight of the Glock slide, it's there for a reason. A lot of people don't really understand the science of firearms. For the gun to work with a Glock, you have the mass of the slide. Now we have the weight of the barrel. Now we have the weight of the recoil spring. Now we have the weight of the striker spring. As you pull the trigger to the rear, you're pulling on the striker, which that has to counter the spring, the recoil spring. So in order for all this stuff to work and properly timed, hence we have the Glock design. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take off weight on the slide, which is going to alter all that, and you are going to have a cause and effect out of that. So I don't modify any of my Glocks. Every Glock I have is the way that it was designed, and it stays that way. So it will work under all conditions. Now, for as far as the weight's concerned, that can speed up the slide. That can cause extraction issues or rejection issues. I look at it as a personal defense weapon. I want something that I know is going to work. Those guns, as they come to the factory, those are the guns that have been tested at 30, 40, 50,000 rounds, are the ones that go through all the military testing. All those components that are used together, not changed out barrels, not changed out trigger groups, not changed recoil springs. That design, and that's what I stay with because I know that it's going to work all the time. So, anytime you modify something from its design intent, especially a gun that's designed for military service that is known to be the epitome of the word reliability, I don't mess with it. Now, for as far as the Glock guns that have been done with their MOS system on there, they have done work and they have made sure everything is proper with that, so it will work. You see a lot of these skeletonized slides and everything. I don't know. I'm just not for that.
Is the ACC chrome lined a lot less accurate than the ACC stainless Knights SR25?
Well, the ACC Advanced Cold Carbine, that would be the basically your LE 6940. That barrel is a chrome plated combat barrel. Now you're looking at an LMT or the Knights, which is a standard steel barrel. Those are designed for two different purposes. The purposes of the ACC barrel is a combat barrel. It's going to see a lot of rounds, full auto, and you need to last. The Knights barrel is designed for accuracy. So you will have your accuracy up to a couple thousand, 3,000 rounds. Then it's going to start degrading because you don't have that chrome plating. That chrome plating increases your life by 3 to 4 times, because it's 3 to 4 times harder than barrel steel once you put that chrome plating in there. So you're really looking at guns that were designed for two different purposes. One is a combat rifle, and one for more of a precision DMR type rifle or a recce type rifle.
What is your opinion of the original SIG M400 rifles?
They were very good. I tested them when they first came out. I wrote them up for Small Arms Review. Um, SIG had messed around with their SIG 550s, their SIG 556, and they just never got the traction. And, you already had a gun that was a proven design. When SIG reverse engineered them and they started making them, they knew they had to make something of quality for them to be able to sell, because SIG is a military contractor as well. They're trying to sell these to foreign militaries. So they always did an excellent job, and it was the same thing with their SIG, the 816. I'm sorry, the SIG 516. The 516 is semi-automatics. The same thing with those. They didn't release those until those were ready, and they were premium level. That's the time that Chris Royce was at SIG. Chris Royce, many of you guys don't know, him and Robert Hurt. Robert Hurt worked for H&K. Robert Hurt was the designer of the one of the designers of the HK 416. He went to SIG, and it was the two of those guys that did the SIG 516, 516, 716. They did the MPX, MCX, and then both of them went over to Caracal. So you had some of the most premier gun designers in the industry who were working on those programs. So the SIG M400 is an excellent rifle. They did a very good job on it. The SIG Tread is another good example of a less expensive rifle that is incredible. It's still higher tier, but no, absolutely, I think those are excellent guns.
Matt on Donor Box, another Matt. Thank you. You mentioned earlier that you have had a lot more trigger time with the SIG P320. Comparing it to the Glock platform, do you believe one design is superior to the other?
The shooting that I did would not give you an answer to that. I'm not shooting them under combat conditions. I'm not abusing guns. They're regular range testing. I carry a Glock. I carry a Glock 45, a Model 45 9mm. So obviously, I still carry a Glock. I'm not doing enough to give you an answer to which one's better, because both of them have functioned 100%. My wife will tell you she likes the feel of the SIG better, and I'll tell you I like the feel of the Glock better. Both guns work for what we're doing with them.
I feel like, and nobody really cares about my opinion, but I feel like, just for me, like, it's a heavy gun too. It's big, and I typically don't like a big heavy gun, because I'm a girl. But I just feel like I can hardly have to aim, and it just, like, I can hit it every time, and I don't know, it just works better in my hands than anything else.
You'll hear a lot of people say, "Well, I've got one and it's never jammed, so it has to be better." No, that doesn't work. We're talking about just range shooting. You're not dropping them. You're not running 1,000. What a military should do when you're actually testing these guns. So yeah, from what I'm doing, the guns they're both perfectly fine.
Yeah, I feel like if you're trying to get your wife or girl or girlfriend, whatever, into shooting, and they're uncomfortable, just give them some options and see what they're most comfortable with. Because even he's given me the baby Glock and things like that, and I've learned to be able to pull that slide back and do things that I don't have the hand strength and to do all of that.
Something works better for, by all means.
I'm a typical girl's girl when it comes to that stuff. Obviously, it's lighter and easier to lift up, but I I don't hit the target like I do with the SIG, and it's a much bigger gun. And Beretta, forget about it. Beretta doesn't really work for me either. There's give your girl some options and see what she feels comfortable with, and she might shoot more. Kenneth, thank you so much. She's on the donor box. I want to build a very compact AR-15 pistol with a binary trigger. Is there anything that I should buy?
Well, you can put a binary trigger in everything, but the only thing I'm going to tell you is do not go less than a 10.5-inch barrel. You go less than a 10.5-inch barrel, if you're planning on using this thing for any kind of self-defense, you are really putting yourself at a risk for a gun that's going to malfunction. This gas system is not designed to work with anything under 10.5-inch barrels. You can get any gun. I mean, you can drop that system in anything. Obviously, if it's a defense gun, you want to make sure you get a higher end one that you know is going to work. But I would just say do not go less than 10.5 inches.
Matt, we have a lot of Matts tonight. Thank you, Matt. Do you have any opinion or experience with the M+M M10X?
Yes, I do. This has been sort of ongoing. I got one quite some time ago, and the thing's reliability was beautiful, but it wasn't shooting to the accuracy that many other people had. So I tried some different things, some different ammo and whatnot, and I spoke with the president, Mike Myers. He's a really nice guy. He's a former, he was a former in the M10X, and he has been working on a barrel contractor who can make barrels proper. There's a couple issues here. One, you have CIP barrels, and then you have SAMI spec barrels. AKs and anything that's made in that caliber is normally a CIP, not a SAMI spec for an AK type design. So he's been trying to work with getting some manufacturers who can make a quality CIP barrel in the United States, and he's been working through that. And then, unfortunately, once this pandemic came down, that was a big, heavy hit on these guys for as far as their ability to get parts, because a lot of these machine shops had to close down because they weren't, quote, essential. He's starting to get things ramped up again. So hopefully we're going to be seeing some new barrels. So I'm waiting on a new barrel, a proper barrel. But I have to say, I love the gun. It's not a typical AK by no means. The recoil on it is beautiful. It is just as smooth as can be, easy to take apart, easy to clean, easy to manipulate the gas valve for using a suppressed. I fired a ton of suppressed. It's really a beautiful rifle. I'm just waiting to get a proper barrel because the barrel I've got is bad, and this guy does not have a lot of stock laying around him. As fast as he can make him. He's a very, very small manufacturer. He does beautiful work. So as soon as I get a new barrel in here and I can get the proper the proper groups with it, you'll see a video very heavily in depth.
Does LMT make a precision barrel for their monolithic rail platform?
Yes, they do. If you go on their website, you will see the stainless steel barrels, especially if you go into the 308s where you'll see all the barrel lengths, you'll see chrome plated barrels, and you'll see stainless steel. The chrome plated barrels are all battle barrels. They are all designed for an assault rifle, a combat rifle, that has a high longevity. The stainless steel barrels are designed for more of a DMR role where you're looking at more precision precision purpose. He has both in all calibers for the most part, and in some cases the different operating systems as well. You have to ask yourself what you want the rifle for. Do you want a more precision barrel? Then you go with a stainless steel. And you look at the 308, you go with my go-to barrel on mine is the 18-inch stainless steel. However, if you have you need a military type rifle, you go with the chrome plating. Accuracy is not that much of a difference. You will tend to get better accuracy with the stainless steel, but they wear out a lot quicker.
Are there any fixed carry handle AR-10s on the market besides Brownells?
Not since the AR-15A2. There was only two ever really available to my recollection. One was the AR-10A2 by Armalite, and the other was the LAR-47. They had offered one as well that had a fixed carrying handle on it. But unfortunately, when Armalite was bought out, they completely discontinued that line, which really sucked. I have two of those rifles. I have one. My first AR-10A2 actually was a wedding gift. And that was when they first introduced them back around I don't know, 97, 98, or in that time period. So that was band era, and then I got a post band era one. Like them a lot. I have a video on that. If you go into the channel, I think it's the full 30 when where you're going to find it. It was on the AR-10A2. But right now, the one I know of is the Brownells BRN-10. I don't know if he's making them anymore. This is a lot of questions. My goodness.
Mm-hmm. Chris, just wondering, do you follow barrel break in procedure or not?
Not very often, because a proper military grade rifle, uh, you don't have to break in. They're not. You don't have to do that. Now, for as far as if I had an extremely expensive type barrel, I had followed break-in procedures on my SR-25 I got, and I had followed it on my AR-10 Super SAS, and I had followed it on my Noreen 300 Win Mag and my 338 Lapua. Normally, I don't. Break-in procedures are a very personal thing. I learned that firsthand working when I was working for Otis. I traveled overseas. As I said, I've been to over 30 countries in 10 or 15 years. I visit military bases all over the world, and I work with sniper. I work with pretty much anything special operations, regular old grunts, you name it. I work with them, and I learned very quickly that when you're talking to snipers, you don't give them a break-in procedure. They have their own, and that's what they believe. You'll have 10 guys in one unit. Every guy has a different procedure for breaking in the barrel. So I learned very quickly that you don't tell somebody how to do that. Everybody has their super secret formula. Some guys every round for 20 rounds, some every 2 rounds, some every 5 rounds, some every 2 rounds to the first 100. I mean, it's totally random what people believe in. So yeah, I tend not to touch it when people ask me that question, just because I've been yelled at before for that. I don't know how you keep this straight.
If you were given control of the Ordnance Corps, what features would you give the M4A2 or the M16A5?
Well, the M4A2, believe it or not, mostly what I would do is I would have followed the PIP program. I would have gone with a free float rail. I probably would have gone with a mid-length gas system. The ambi features would be fine. I would have gone with a enhanced bolt carrier group. I would switch to a hammer forged barrel. I would go with improved extraction system. I probably would be going with the LMT enhanced bolt carrier group, because that's specifically what it was designed for. The M16A5, I would probably do very similar things too. I would go with the C7A2 type design with the telescopic stock. I would switch to a hammer forged barrel. I would go to a free floated barrel. Um, I would go with probably obviously change the color these days because everything we're doing is in the desert. I probably would go with an anodizing that would be the tan. It would be totally ambidextrous PMags. Um, and I probably would go with some kind of a round counter in there, which would keep track of how many rounds to go through the thing, so you can do proper maintenance. And the most important thing, I would overhaul the maintenance system where it actually maintained rifles as they were supposed to, rather than having guns go through entire deployments without even being checked. And then when the guns malfunction, they say the gun's a piece of crap, when the reality is it hasn't been maintained in 2 freaking tours, and parts are all worn out. That's probably about where I'd be.
Was there a relationship between Anderson Manufacturing and Colt Defense? Did they use to manufacture parts for one another?
That would be news to me. I've never known that Colt buy anything from Anderson Arms. You have to understand that Colt had the rifles were a quote mil spec, meaning it formed to a TDP, which would mean Colt would have to give its drawings to Anderson, and I don't see that happening. Um, Recently, anything's possible. But back in the time when I was there, and back when they're manufacturing for the U.S. government, every single part that was made on that rifle had to come off of that TDP. So those drawings had to go to any vendor that they would use. I'll never say something's impossible. I would say it's not likely.
I would like to personally thank everybody who donated tonight. Our donations have been way down It's not something that I have really said anything or asked any from anyone. I just appreciate everybody tonight who donated, because it has, we have been hit a little bit by the virus in that way, and we are a channel that is funded by our viewers, not funded by YouTube in any way. So
thank you all very
we
much.
appreciate, you know, you loving the channel and loving us and taking time to come to the Q&A and ask your questions. And if you have, you know, a few bucks to donate, we appreciate all of that. We know everybody's in the same boat where, you know, people are struggling and it's hard times for everybody. And that's why we've continued to do this, because we want to help anybody that we can and continue to put out good content. So we appreciate you guys.
And we enjoy the Q&As. I enjoy being able to you know, react with you guys. And a lot of the other guys, they don't do that. They may, you know, throw a bone once in a great while and do one, but you got so many people in there that are not able to answer any questions. I like being able to interact with you guys like this, and it does get harder and harder. The more people we get into here, the harder it is to answer everything. But we do our best to be able to do that, and we really, I really enjoy doing these. You know, there's not a lot of point in spending a lifetime doing this and not giving people the information that you've learned.
And you know, you obviously have to allocate your money where you see fit. If your focus right now is using any spare money you have to bump up your arms or your ammo or whatever you're doing, absolutely do that. We are also not a channel that I don't like to put a bunch of ads on our Facebook, because I don't want it to be that way. I also want it to be a place to engage and share things that are more important than, you know, a lot of sales and ads, because, you know, people do it because they make commissions, and that's also how they support their channel. But you can go to smallarmsolutions.com and use any of the banners for Brownells or any Aero Precision or Palmetto, and you click through those, and whatever purchase you make, we receive 3% of. And whether it's our channel or somebody else's channel, that's a good way to support your 2A channels right now. So we thank you so much for joining us, and I will make sure that we are here again next week for you guys.
We'll see you next week. Enjoy. Have a good night. Thank you.